Welcome to Dream Machine, where this week we're turning the spotlight on a real stunner of a car. Now this little beauty is a modern replica of a 1950s Porsche. We'll be building the car in our workshop. A kit provides all the necessary parts to build our Porsche replica, but the team also need to take a few bits and pieces from this rusty old Beetle.
You might think this Beetle has reached the end of the road, but you'd be wrong, because we're going to convert it into a Porsche 356 Speedster replica. It may not look like much to work with, but once we've finished with it, it'll be a dream machine.
Also this week we're meeting the couple who went on holiday and came back with their dream car, meeting Girl About Town Lucy, and taking a trip to the Goodwood Festival of Speed in an original 356 Speedster.
I always wanted a nice car for the summer.
The workshop team are building a modern replica of the 50s Porsche Speedster. They're well into their first job, stripping down this old Beetle.
Using VW parts isn't as daft as it might appear. The Beetle was designed by Porsche, who used Beetle components as the foundations of their new sports car, just as we're doing.
Right, guys, up.
With all the bodywork off, the floor pan's revealed. We're planning to use it as the base of the Speedster, but it needs to be shortened. The reason we're shortening the floor pan is because the Speedster's a shorter car than the Beetle, so we need to cut out this section that's about 275mm wide. The two halves will then come together and be welded to create the new floor for the Speedster, so it's a grinder job. The floor pan's cut, re-welded and painted. Now we can start building the car from the bottom up. The engine is rear-mounted and will be fitted to the tail of the chassis once the gearbox is in place. The gearbox has three mountings, one at the front here and two at the back. But this whole unit, which includes the 4-speed gearbox in the middle here, and then a swing axle either side with drum brakes on, all just slots into place. Very clever. Very nice, very simple engineering. The most crucial part of gearing linkage is this tiny pin. Without this, there are no gears, because this connects the shaft that comes from the gear lever here, through a shaft down here, to this, which is the gear selector goes into the gearbox. That slides over like that, and then that acts as a pin that locks the two together. Our Speedster is a reproduction of the Porsche 356, so called because it was the 356th project to come out of the Porsche design office. It became one of the most famous open-top sports cars of the 50s.
The original 356 Roadster was actually designed by Ferry Porsche, who was Ferdinand Porsche's son. You can imagine in 1957, when it came out, just how revolutionary it was, because the lines on this car would have been unlike that anyone had ever seen before. And I think everything about this car really epitomises the time. I mean, the whole feel, the curved windscreen, wooden steering wheel, it just takes you back to the 50s, and I really feel the part. When it was launched, the 356 was a hit with wealthy young Americans. They used the car to participate in club races. Although Ferry Porsche thought the 356 would be limited to a run of 500 units, it actually remained in production for 15 years. But the car's success has often been overshadowed by the legendary car that replaced it, the 911. The phenomenal success of the 911 meant that the 356 was largely forgotten about, so original cars are very rare, with only a few immaculate examples kept by hardcore enthusiasts. In the mid-70s, the Speedster came back into vogue, sparking off a number of restoration projects. But many people found that the best way to have a 356 experience was in a replica. This one is made by a company called Chesil. With the looks of a classic and the reliability of a modern car, replicas were just what the new generation of enthusiasts were looking for. I can see why these are so popular, and I mean, in kit form, They've just become so much more accessible. They're amazingly nippy. With this Beetle engine, you get a real purr when you put your foot down. Rawr. It's a car that you really want to go touring in. It really says 50s style touring. Glamour, film star, Amanda. Grace Kelly, eat your heart out. The replica the team are building in the workshop is made by Pilgrim Cars. Like most companies, they sell them in kit form, already built. But where's the fun in that?
The gearbox is on and we're ready to attach the engine. Different types of engine can be fitted to our Speedster. The purists stick with Volkswagen engines, so we could use the one from our old Beetle, but we've chosen not to. We've decided to go for an upgrade in the engine department. There was nothing essentially wrong with the 1200cc unit in our Beetle, but we wanted a bit more power. So this is a completely reconditioned 1600cc unit. Porsche always liked to do things differently, so instead of the conventional engine position up front, he opted for this rear-mounted position for his beloved air-cooled engine. It's incredible, isn't it? Whole engine attaches to the gearbox with just 4 bolts. Fantastic. The engine will take you from 0 to 60 in 14 seconds. Once built, the Speedster's a perfect car for a day out.
This is a rare original Porsche 356 Speedster, worth £30,000. I took it for a rather rain-soaked drive with owner Delvin Mallet.
I always wanted a nice car for the summer. The wind in the hair when I had hair. And so I thought I'll get the Porsche Speedster because I've heard they're really good. I bought a magazine in 1967 which had an article called Love Affair with the Bathtub. Like small boys of 20 years old do, I used to fantasise over this in the evenings. And about the only thing I could afford, amazingly, because you wouldn't say that now, was an 11-year-old Porsche, which was exactly the same cost as my 5-year-old Mini. So I virtually did a swap. I sold the Mini and I bought this Porsche. We're talking about 1969 when I bought the first one, with a princely sum of £300, I think it was. Well, I hadn't realised again, because I didn't know much about Porsches, there were virtually none in Britain at all. I think they actually sold either 2 or 3 here. You can see why, because when it rains, they're completely useless.
We've come to the Goodwood Festival of Speed to see it alongside the cream of classic and modern motors. The show was set up by Lord March. How have you managed to create this?
Well, I think it's everyone can get close to the cars. That's probably and there are no restrictions, so everyone has a good time, and the manufacturers like showing their cars here, and museums now got the hang of it, so they send their cars over from the States and wherever. So we're very lucky in putting together as you say, I hope what's the best collection of cars anyone will ever see anywhere in the world.
Anyone who is anyone in the world of motorsport is here, because the Goodwood Festival of Speed is the place to be seen.
There's lots of parties, lots of food, lots of drink, and lots of wonderful cars and pretty girls.
Tony Smith, you are a complete music guru, but you also have a huge passion for old cars.
That's true, I do. Yeah, they're fantastic. I love any of the older cars, and this particular event is probably unique in the world. It's probably one of the best events in the world.
Now, you do have a very nice stable, but what have you got here this weekend?
I got a Ferrari Dino, 1960 Dino. It was a Formula One car that won the Italian Grand Prix in 1960 with Phil Hill.
And you're driving up the hill in the mud?
In the mud, in the wet, and we're all mad.
It's really putting the best of the past and the present all together, which is why the ingredients have been so successful.
So you're having fun here?
Oh, well, that's what Goodwood was all about, getting really close. It's a family occasion when you can sort of come along, and the important thing is it gets very personal because you can actually come along with your family